The meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Now, let's see if it's telling me the truth. I'm not sure because I can't see any comments as yet. So let's see what I do next. Been a funny day. Yeah. Been a funny day or two. Oh, here we are. Here we are. Like. Okay. I think I like that. Yes. Share. Marie Sutcliffe, I can see you here. Share. Let's share to a group or two. Let's share to Solargy as we do, and the Lightstream live broadcasting group. Jolly good. Amara Grace. Must be Suzanne's sister or something. A name change just to confuse me, or maybe it's me who didn't get the name right. I don't know. So let's see now. So if I pop that on there like that, and then have a look if there's any comments. Yes, there is. Joy King, hiya Joy, you're doing a magnificent job. Carry on, old chap. It's all meant to be. Bernie Mooney, hello Bernie. Nice to see you. Monica AK, I'm going to say. Monica AK, in case I get it wrong. Yon10, Hlomo. Hello, Yon10. Hilda, hiya, Hilda. So I've got no idea what's in store because we popped along, as you do, to Glastonbury yesterday, you know, and we got all sorts of clobbered on because it was a fancy dress occasion, although the clothing I was wearing is pretty normal for me on a Sunday. And we traipsed up to the top of Glastonbury Tor and we met a whole load of other loonies, right? Maybe loonies is not right because that suggests more of a nighttime thing, but we met a whole load of other weird, wacky, woo-woo types who were all there for one reason and one reason alone, was to basically share unconditional love. See, I've got just talking about it now, I got a big thing going up my spine. So it must be true. And Amanda Lawrence is amazing. She's gentle, but powerful at the same time. And I have a feeling that I've known Amanda for a long, long time. And she looked like she'd been overdosed with the blue rays. So it was great. We had a great laugh. The weather held off. And just at the end of the anchoring, the sun came out and shone on all of us. And it was absolutely and utterly marvelous. And yet, I am Dr. Joe, and I do have qualifications, and I am a sort of internationally and nationally renowned scientific person in the field of biomedical and medical science. So I do know a few things from a 3D point of view. But what I've found out is sometimes you need to jettison all knowledge and live in, I haven't got a clueness, really. And just go with what emerges from the heart, one breath, and one step and one moment at a time. Because I can see more and more people are not understanding the situation that's around in the world, and they can't get their heads around it. And I feel that that's a very, very positive state to be in. If you can't get your head around stuff and you can't understand it and you can't work things out with your logic because it just doesn't seem logical, best thing to do is take your head, throw it away, and just start working from your heart, one step, one breath, one moment at a time, and be guided, not from intellect and not from instinct, but to be guided from intuition and inspiration. Look, I am become, and once again, I'm in the pulpit. My friend Shanine will be in a minute telling me off. Stop going on, she'll say. You don't have to go on. So anyway, it's nearly time for me to bring Suzanne in. or Amara Grace, but for the grace of Susanne Amara, right? And she's probably waiting in the wings. I always live in a haven't got a clue mode. Marie, you and me both, my love, you and me both. Because I tried so long and so hard to try and work things out and be a decent person and to do the correct thing. And the more I thought, the more I obstructed myself on what was trying to come out. I spent years and years and years in repression and suppression and compression and everything else that I realized in the end, the answer is surrender, total and utter surrender to something that's infinitely more powerful than us, which in the end turns out to be us anyway. So on that note, it's nearly time. I'm going to admit my guest. 2 people have entered the waiting room. Well, that's no good because only one's coming in. Who's the other one? Let me see now. There's Amara Grace and Susanne Amara. I don't know which one to. Oh, God. There's the devil on one hand and an angel on the other. Right. So here we go. Admit. Let's see what happens next. Amara, don't be at it. There's 2 of you. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay. So I've got it just in case, because I don't know what's going. I mean, I don't know who knows what's going to happen. If we end up talking about the codes,
yeah,
codes are on my iPad. So if you join me, it won't go on the screen unless I share the screen. This is what I did with Todd. But you have to join. You'll have to join it. It won't be on the screen though when we're talking. Unless,
okay. I don't care. You just guide me through it because I'm a bit thick when it comes to these sorts of things.
You think I'm not?
No, I don't assume anything.
Just join it, and then if we end up talking about codes, it just means I can bring them up easily.
No problem. I'm sure it's going to be fun because we mightn't end up talking about codes.
We might not.
You see what I called this? I called it something like decoding, encoding, or recoding, because what are codes? That's what I'm hoping to talk about. What do we mean by codes? Right.
When I go on with Todd, we talk about the codes off air, and then when we're on screen, we hardly ever talk about the codes.
But my thought today was, hello, nice to see you. I haven't seen you for such a long time, like yesterday, and that was the first time we met in the flesh, right? We had a laugh, didn't we?
It was. I loved yesterday. It was everything about life that's affirming about life.
I agree, and I think I took things far too seriously for far too long.
I agree.
Because I was trained in the belief that that was the way to go forward and to be successful. And what I found out was that everything I thought I knew was basically taking me one step closer to my deathbed quicker than I thought, and my story, as you know, is I tried to do myself in because I just couldn't work anything out anymore. I was acting in a way that was not only destroying myself, but it was also harming the people around me. And then, as I say, I took a whole load of tablets, and I should never have a headache for the rest of my life, but at the gates of insanity and at the brink, basically, something happened to me at that point. And I can only describe, it's hard to describe in words because people say you can't really describe it, but I can give you a flavor of it. It was almost like I was turned around, right, and given a choice. You can either come with us or you can turn around, right, and you can do what you set out for, because you signed the contract, right? If you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have signed up for it, you see. And I got a sort of a light-hearted view because, Susanna, I was miserable. I was miserable for such a long time, trying to be happy and pretending to be happy. I was afraid, pretending that I wasn't afraid, And what happened to me was I got turned around. I felt this peace that passeth all understanding. I was given like it was like an equation, it was like an algebraic equation. And when they showed me this equation, I understood every secret of the universe, right? I understood everything. And I was sort of saying, please stay with me, please stay with me. But over time, it disappeared. But you see, I've got a thing going up my spine now, you know, and I don't want to delude myself anymore. And I certainly don't want to fool anybody else or delude anybody else, because I only want to live in the truth with the big T. Not my truth as Joe, not your truth as Susanne, but I want to know in this objective, yet reality that is just detached and unconditional love. See, I understand what I'm talking about at a sort of this sort of intuitive level, but trying to explain it is bloody difficult.
Yeah.
Over to you, old chap. Follow that.
Oh my God. It feels like there's a lot of resonance with that, because obviously I've lived most of my life like dying to live, or living to die, or dead, or not attached to my body, or numb, you know, all that, like finding different ways to occupy the busy mind, or going into logic, everything but be present, essentially. Even when I got married, even when I had kids, everything. And then, yeah, much like you, it was, I think I was definitely coming towards hitting a wall. You know, I had a very difficult early part of my life. Teenage was very, very troubling. You know, I tried to take my own life. So it was quite, I had a lot of mental disturbance. So I never really got in or attached. I'd already dissociated in a million different ways. But when I hit my kind of like late 30s, I think it is, I'm so crap with age, but anyway, it was about 2012 basically. I'm semi-conscious, like I started reading books around Egypt not being the way it is and stuff. You know, I was questioning like UFOs, you know, all the classic questioning sort of activities. And then I kind of just went to Stonehenge on the 2012 day, the 21st December, and I heard the stones. And at the time I thought all spirituality, like crystals, unicorns, all that was a load of shit. Like everyone was just basically new age and deluded, or pot smoking, lots of judgments, all of which I've had to swallow. And then I heard these sounds, and I kept looking around to see who was making the sounds, and like there was no explanation for it. It made me feel really weird and quite angry, because I was in resistance to love. And then I scarpered. I needed to leave. I went into defence, and then I ended up at Avebury. I got this voice that said, go to Avebury. Then I went to Avebury and I fell asleep against one of the stones. And when I woke up, I felt completely fine. Like nothing had happened. I thought I was just acting weird. And I went home. And then when on the 29th, it was my daughter's birthday. And I felt like I was coming down with flu real quick in the afternoon. I was fine 1 minute, like dead the next. And then I was sort of asleep for 3 days. But in those 3 days, you know, like you got the equation, I kind of got that. I defragged. Like I've heard people describe it when they've done plant medicines, but this was no plant medicine. This was God or source. And I defragged and went in lots of different ways, like it was billions of years. And when I came back, it was different. And that was the start of it. But it wasn't the start of like salvation. It was the start of learning about my resistance to love.
Yeah, I understand totally. I think I got such a hit that I was on cloud 9, 10, 11, 12, and every cloud under the sun for 9 months, believe it or not, for 9 months. You know, I got such a massive spiritual awakening that I thought that was it forever then. And after 9 months, I was gently lowered back to the ground and the feeling left me. And I rang somebody who was guiding me at the time, right? And I said, what's happened? He said, Joe, you've been given a touch of heaven. He said, you've been given a touch. He said, now you've got to work one day at a time in getting back there. And you've got to share your process with everybody as honestly as you can, and just explain the practical steps that you've gone through. Because to me, the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. You know, we have to take actions and ground these actions, right, in order to embody each, not lesson as such, but experience as it comes along. because that's, oh, see, I'm getting the doodies and coming up here now.
Like that's what my book's about that I'm writing. I've nearly finished it now. Finally, it's like I keep saying nearly finished a book, but I really have promised nearly finished it. But all the experiences, they're just experiences, aren't they? You can talk about them in a state. It sounds like a story. It's like Celestine Prophecy. It's great. You know, mine reads like somewhere between James Bond and Stargate and the Celestine Prophecy, something in between. It would just be a great story, but every time I had something happen, I have to embody it. And that took a lot longer than the process of the event or the experience. And that's why it's taken so long, is to try and find words and codes and stuff. That's been the embodiment for me, is to try and bring a process to earth that where source meets something where we don't have to apply the mind quite so hard, and we can just feel it in a way which is intuitive, because that's what I feel like we're coming away from something, one way of being, to another way of being, but we find it very hard to articulate. And I think what I'm doing is I'm bringing like many people, it's not just me, it's like an army of people, but I'm just one of those that's kind of in between, so I can find something that's easy for people to meet. I hope that people can meet it and just have an experience, and then it's theirs. You know, it's not, I'm not owning it, it's just to put it out. Because for me, that was what the universe was doing to me gradually, or, you know, source was just coming in, and like the light body would, you know, I mean, all the stuff that goes on, you know, I know I could see all that and feel it, but ultimately it was just hitting this body, meeting where it wasn't aligned, chucking up an event or an interaction or a conversation or somebody that mirrored my extreme distortions, and I would have to take the medicine, and then and it was really hard.
Well, I mean, and I think that people who tune into these programs, right, are equally experienced in a lot of the stuff we're talking about. And then there's people who may be relatively new to it. And my hope is that by sharing honestly what we've gone through, where we're up to now, and our hope for the future, that might sort of, in like, to use a word of the time, that might activate them, right? You know, and it might help them, you know, through pictures, through tones, through sounds, through touch, all these things, through the five senses in some sort of way, that might reconnect and not reconstruct really, but reconnect and disentangle them. I call it quantum disentanglement, I call it, you know.
I really love
that. So to me, like the ancient Hebrew Kabbalah, you know, they believed there was a shell, a husk that the ego created, and we almost programmed ourselves in this before we came here to have this particular obstructive sort of thing. And our job was to work through every single obstruction and allow the light of the soul to come through, and to express its purpose for living. See, I'm just going on and saying these things, you know. What do I mean? Susanne, I haven't got a clue really. I sometimes have to play this back to think what I was going on about, you know.
You know exactly what you're doing. You're like a wizard.
But I know, you know, I can feel that it's meant to be, you know. I can see that the first part of human life is about developing instinct initially.
Yes.
To keep us going. And then we move from instinct into intellect then, you know, and that is basically, well, when we've combined those two things, we've become a 3D human. But there's more, you see. We can stay in that 3D revolution and keep going and repeating the same old patterns, or we can feel the pain of moving and emerging into the next step of our birthing. That's the way I see this now. And I can see that it's almost like a rebirth into intuition, into our soul's purpose. So the first part of our life is a little less self, and the second part is a move into the big mind, big self, spiritual side. And then in the end, when we've boxed it all off in this incarnation, right, it's basically a life of inspiration then. What shall I do now? Give me an inspiration. I'll act upon it and see what happens next. How does that sound? I should write a book on this, or maybe.
I think you're right in it as you talk, really. And because it's just, I feel like you and me were both doing, and a lot of other people that we know, mutual friends, you get to a stage where your upper light fields are open, so the universe just is like speaking. You're in harmony. You've come into a harmony with it. You're resonant, and so then you're no longer getting in your own way quite as much. It doesn't mean we don't get in our own way. It just means it happens less. And when we do, we're a bit more aware of it, and we can observe it and meet it and work with it, because we're more used to doing that, you know, because we've had the experiences of that. So to me, that I forget what you say, because I could just so in the moment of just feeling it. You were saying about the shell. So that's important. I was talking about that the other day, because I brought like a healing transmission, and we really went deep into that. You know, after been on the tour, I felt when I was on the tour, like very deep, obviously very deep mother energy, like, you know, for Earth, it's very profound. Especially with Amanda, you know, she said some things to me, it really went right in. And then that came through in a transmission, and what I could see was this core. We've got the outer core, which is all the identities, you know, that we create, the creations, the entity creations that we make. And to me, they all different fractions that we make. We fracture and separate in different ways, and they go in the subconscious, and they get their own personalities and their own harmonic fields. So they've all got their own resistances, their own likes, their own modelings, and then they'll pop up, and it'll be like, oh, who's in? Da, 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 da. So there's that kind of defense, which is all the protection and thing, but there's an inner one. And I think you get to that after doing the shadow work. You start to get into this inner sanctum of the seed, and that's what I was feeling yesterday. I felt my inner sanctum really flowering, really coming open, and it's such a, it's not like a big bang, you know, people talk about, you know, this sudden big thing. It was so subtle. So I cut tears. It was so subtle, Joe. It was just like, there she is. There she is. And it's a vulnerability and a softness that we have to kind of meet ourselves in that bed, that just bed of joy, and say it. So we've actually given ourselves permission to be joyous and light and loving and kind, and to realize that every human being we meet, no matter what the story that they're playing out, is love. And then you drop in the world, and you see all of the, when you hit that, then you can see all the programs that people are running, and all the revenge energy and the judgment energy and the separation and all the different things. So then you've got to go back again and meet it again, because then you feel like, oh shit, I really am awake and I might be crazy. So you've got to go back and meet your ego again, and go work into the acceptance of it. I think that's kind of where I'm sort of at that stage.
Same as myself. To me, it's about refinement. But we're not doing the polishing, because that assumes that we know what's going on at the ego level. And that's the whole point, is we get done to. Do as you would be done to. And I think that that's what surrender is. There's a phrase I like, it's called surrender to win. You know, so we give up. No, we don't give up. We surrender, but it's not giving up. It's just basically giving up our control and our understanding. And as I've said to many people, because I learned this myself, is we get to know what it's all about 6 months after it's happened to us, right? Because it's only the ego that wants to know what's coming up. So if it doesn't like the feel of it, it can try and duck and dive and dodge and weave and avoid it. So people say to me, well, I need to know. No, you don't need to know. You just need to flow. You just need to go. You just need to glow. And that will give you, say again?
We can't know. Like, how do we know? There's trillions of different timelines. It's like, you go, once you lose time and you go in universal field, it's such a joke. It's the cosmic joke. It's when you just start laughing for like hours and hours on end, like a crazy person. It's like nobody knows. Everyone thinks they know, and they've got an answer for everything, and a construct, and a modality, and a solution, and everything else. But I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like we're like this little. We are such a big whole thing, which we can't know because we don't know anything, like all of that. We just don't, because the human brain is like gets in the way too much of it all. So we've got this little foci of awareness that comes through our input through the brain, and we have to kind of just try and make sense of it at first, but then we like where we're at now, more in flow, but still we don't know, because as soon as you go, like I used to think, do you have an example I can use, because it's hard to look through the eyes that you used to have, but it was very dull. Life was very bloody dull, and the colours were dull, and everything felt heavy, and like I used to look at people through a window and think, how the hell am I supposed to be happy? I don't even know anything. Like, it was like watching a film. But now it's so bright and it's so sharp, and sometimes it's solid and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's fluid. Sometimes I see things that are in different layers, and then sometimes my consciousness, often now, is in different fields, which we're only just starting to learn about. But we can't know anything because it's unknowable. It's a felt sense. It's something that humans haven't maybe had outside of very, very small pockets of, you know, the mystery school, or those sections of populace that meditated and did all that. But we're supposed to do it normally, like have normal lives. And
Absolutely.
that was the agreement. I feel that was the agreement, that we come to think we were messed up and small and all the rest of it, all the labels and the stories, the libraries, and then break through this and come to something else that we surrender to, like you say. Because you can't, it's like water. I keep just getting images of water all the time at the moment, Joe. It's like I'm in permanent waterfall.
I know why that is. I'll tell you in a minute.
And the water just goes, like, literally, like life and presence just goes through your hands. You can't hold on. The ego wants to hold on and label and make it something. I struggle even with the code sometimes. I have to not hold on, not to put anything on it. Even when there's a transmission, to say, yes, this is a transmission, but that's only a part, tiny little bit, and it's just whatever it is. But we want to make it something. It's like the cosmic joke of our consciousness, to learn to let go of that consistently and monitor, I guess, in that new felt sense that we don't have a word for.
Well, I can bring a word in soon. Chromato-opto-genetics is the way forward, and I'll explain what I mean by that. But for over 20 years now, I've been a member of something called the International Society for the Study and Science, for the Scientific Study of Subtle Energy Medicine, right? ICM it is, and it's basically full of healers. It's full of people who are intuitive, psychics, but it's also full of quantum physicists as well. And they're the sort of people that I knock around with, because science and spirituality at both ends meet. They just meet, because, science, it reduces stuff to the smallest infinitesimal particle, whereas spirituality goes into the waves and the invisible realms, and they both meet in a sort of infinity signal, and that's moving all the time in a spiral, isn't it? I call that spiral dynamics. It's not, I didn't make that up. Other people have made that up.
I like these words.
Yeah, but I mean, I like these words as well, because I'm used to reading stuff on this, but I'm not trying to blind anybody with science, because how can you tell that you're on the right path? Because you can feel it. That to me is that felt sense of knowing that you're on target. Well, what are you on target to? You're on target to progress, to evolving, to awakening, to expansion. How do you know that that's happening? Because you feel lighter, you feel more vital, you've got more energy. You can't work out why you're not absolutely destroyed with all the things that you're doing. And that's because you're not generating the energy because you've opened your heart and it's flowing through you and carrying you on this wave of energy. To go back to chromato-opto-genetics and light and water and emotions and stuff like that, I got Joe, you'll be finding out about something called optogenetics, but we want you to study chromato-opto-genetics. And I have to say then, give us a clue. What are you going on about? And I say, Joe, what does chromatic mean? And I get, well, chromatic, that's to do with color. Very good. Well, there's a chromatic scale that's got 12 notes. Okay.
Makes sense.
And yeah, and optogenetics, Joe, there's 12 colors as well that have got different frequencies. So if you combine the 12 notes of the chromatic scale, there's the sound and the tones and the intensity of the, hearing, and there's also, Joe, the 12 colors. So if you can combine these and use these to help people in a scanning sort of a way, this will scan like a code their energy field, and it will knock out of the way anything that's obstructing it, and that will allow their soul's purpose and expression to come through. So that's where I'm up to. And I know I go on, Susanne, you just have to say, give us a go.
I think that's what I feel. That's exactly what I feel. I feel the harmonic, and it comes in, it first came in sound, like I could hear, but I didn't have, it wasn't through this, or maybe it is a bit, but not, it's not, it's somewhere else in the way I can't explain, because I don't have the words, even though normally when I write I'm great, but not like this. So I had this feeling and this sense of all the movements, like I can tune. It's like you can tune very wide very quickly and feel all the movements of like planets or systems, and then come right in and just go right subatomic even, and cellular, like when you're heart to heart with someone, you can feel like it's like a song of something, and then there's a bum note. You can hear there's a bum note. You can hear there's something scratchy, something that's not quite aligned, and there's no teaching. It's just like a witness, and then all you do is connect up your spine. It's like this middle line, and when I'm in that middle line, I know it. I just know it. Like it's not I can't find the words. It's not even a knowing. It's like you're not even there. You're just witnessing it. And that's when the colours started to come in too. And that's when my codes really changed. But I was going through, I also hit a wall at that point of my own, where lots of things had to go.
No, and this is the difficulty, isn't it? That it's trusting that the things, if you like, that no longer serve you will be gently washed away from you, unless you want to hang on and try and keep hold of them, you see, because it's not the letting go that hurts, it's the hanging on that causes the pain, and and that's the difficulty. And when you let go, this is what I find, is when you let go of something that you've been attached to for such a long time, when you let go, the freedom comes with it, because you can see the reasoning behind it, that at that point in that timeline served its purpose. But now, because you were moving, it's all about time as well, isn't it? It's all about letting go of the past and the future to be present and to go upwards rather than horizontally. See, there's all this stuff that comes in, But what I'm trying to say is I understand. I call this a nuance analysis. It's almost like, I can't explain it, but it's like really, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't find the words. It's just a feeling, it's ineffable, Talking about effable, they call me effing Joe, you know what I mean? So, but sometimes when I sit in, like where we were a couple of miles away from Glastonbury, and we found this beautiful place right by the riverbank. It was a miracle how my wife found it. It just all dropped into place. So we know how miracles work is, if it's meant to happen, it will effortlessly just present itself. And that's exactly what happened, because we won't go anywhere without the cat, you see. So we had to find somewhere that took a cat, took two chaps like ourselves, and it was a beautiful place. And I was out running this morning just before 6 o'clock, and the mist was hanging and stuff like that. But I stopped, and there was no sound whatsoever. However, there was such a feeling of peace. Because in the end, this is all about peace of mind and being comfortable with how ordinary I am, right? And that's the paradox, is because I think it's the ordinariness that brings with it the extraordinary capabilities of each individual soul on this planet. And I think that that's what this is all about. Your go.
It's like tag, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well,
let me just put that on silent. I don't want that making a noise. So it's easy, like I think we go through stages, don't we, of attachment. So I feel like that's where I am. Like I'm dropping right in to going like, yeah, no, like, yeah, it's not normal. I'm not really like aligned with that word. It just is whatever it is. Like we just have to land in fully. We can't leave any bits out, you know, like any parts like scattered around, like even entrainments. We've got to like be aware of where we're just putting all the energy colanders and stuff, you know, and just be that very, it just, you get that, it's just, I sound like such a schmuck, like I can't get the word, but it's aligned. It's aligned. It's that where everything just feels like it's in the right tune. It's calibrated. It's resonant. Everything is resonant. And if it's not resonant, then you kind of know very quickly now. But before that awareness, so it's in a different lower octaves. Everyone's in different octaves. And we kind of move as well. We're not stationary. So we move in depending on who's in. If we've not embodied, it's all like everything's separate, then it merges more. And then it has to really drop in really deep, like deeper and deeper into that temple of very big surrender to your soul. An acceptance of that.
I understand fully what you're saying, you know, and how do we help others if our job is to help others? Because I do feel that there are people who are way showers, only that they're a few steps ahead and have been through the general principles of the process. Because sometimes by sharing what worked for me may be the opposite of what somebody else has got to do. But if I actually say, I tried this and it didn't work, right? I'm not saying that, you know, you've got to feel your own way through it, haven't you? This is the whole point. Yeah. Each individual soul, and I could be wrong, you know, because I don't care if someone says to me, you're wrong. I'll say, well, explain why I'm wrong. I'll filter it in my heart to see whether you're right. And if you're right and it feels right to me, then I'll try that as well, you see.
So that's what right and wrong, Joe.
No, I don't. I only using words because words are clumsy, aren't they? As they say, they're obfuscatory, aren't they?
Love that word.
Yeah, they're obfuscate. They sometimes words block the true essential nature of what's trying to come across. You know, there's a phrase that I like. It's apparently Native American Indian, but it's oftentimes, it sounds more like Victorian oftentimes, but oftentimes intellect thwarts intuition. And that means sometimes is when you try and label something and describe it, you're missing the essential feeling that's involved, you know. And to me, you know, when you've got that feeling on you and you look at a flower and it's much more crisp and clear and beautiful. Oh, see, I'm turning into a poet and I don't know it and all that business. But that's, to me, when you're really in the flow, and you'll understand this when the codes are coming through and the colors and the lights and stuff. But to me, just seeing something, that's only the start of it. That's just the shallowness of it, really. If you can open your heart, right, or it can open your heart by looking at it, then it more and more layers are revealed, aren't they? So this is a depth and a weight. And I think it's that resonates. I call this mind, body, soul, spirit coherence, when everything falls into place and just temporarily everything stops. Everything stops, except our awareness of everything sort of is there.
I've got a story for you.
Go on then. Do you mean shut up and give us a go?
No, you're gonna love this one. So, like, I talk to trees. So trees talk to me, and I talk to trees, right? So, I was in street last night. I stayed in streets in near Glastonbury, And I went in to get something to eat, and I'm walking down the street, and the tree, there was this magnificent tree. I didn't know what type of tree it was. I just saw its trunk, and it was beautiful. It was in the dark, but I could feel it. I could feel its strength and its mightiness, and how it had stood there for like so many years. And I was thinking, I was in a bit of a kind of like, what the hell do you think of what's going on? Because they've made the street like you've got to go down one side and back the other. So I'm sort of laughing as the community police officer is walking up the wrong way. You know, my mind is going. And I'm thinking to the tree, I'm saying to the tree, like, this is crazy. What do you think of this? And all I got was love. It was like I got blasted by love. So I'm walking down the street, the next tree goes. I get blasted by love, there's no words. And I get about another 10 paces up, and I was like, I hope nobody minds, but I was near orgasmic. Like I was just so blissed out with love. They were just plying me with love because I'd gone in the mind of the story, and it was just like, okay, that's great. So I went and had some food, and I'm on the way back. So on the way back, I get the trees, they're over the opposite side of the road. And I'm like, you're going to do this again? Because I'm just like, all right, I'm full now, it's okay. And then I was really appreciating the trees, but this has never happened before, like in the same way. So there was some plants, and then there was some grass. And I saw the plants, and I was like, oh, you are so beautiful. Like, I could see the form, like in the darkness, like the light coming off, little photons of light pinging off. I was just like, oh my God, this is like, you feel like you're on a medicine journey sometimes. And then the grass said, what about me? The weeds said, like, basically, what about me? And then I saw the grass, and the grass in the dark, it went totally sharp. And like you could see, like normally you just see grass as grass, but it was like every individual little blade, and I could feel it all singing. And I just broke down in tears, and I phoned my mum, and I was like, Mum, the grass just spoke to me. Because that's what it is, you see. We're so busy, we just forget that there's something utterly, I'm going to cry now, utterly magical about whatever this is. And I don't know why my consciousness works like this. I haven't got no explanation. I don't care anymore, and I don't feel like a freak anymore. I feel love, and I just see that everywhere. Like sometimes I come out of it, obviously, because there's things that happen with your subconscious, and you've got to, meet all that. But when I'm in the flow and I'm in the groove, there's something, we've got something so special, so utterly beautiful and joyful here, if we can surrender to whatever it might be. And I don't think we can even know. We're just like at the beginning of it. So
I agree totally. And that 9-month period that I was talking about, I was like that for 9 months, right? And people could call me all the horrible names under the sun, and I would just laugh and say, yeah, I know. So nobody could harm me, nobody could do anything, because I felt so fantastic, And I think that's what we're moving towards collectively as a race. And if people like ourselves can just but share our experience to say, look, this is how I'm trying to explain it. Maybe you'll get something from it. But really, it's about letting go, because there's something in us or working through us to open us up to a more expansive view of what life's all about, And it is simple. And for me, it's become aware of your breathing. And then through becoming aware of your breathing, become aware of your body and get to know your body. Are you holding any tension anywhere? Then breathe that tension away. So it's almost like the out breath, which is basically the mother breath and the nurturing breath. It's about soothing that on the out breath and allowing it to relax, because as it relaxes, it almost lets out the energy that's being compressed there. And that moves back into onlineness then. And we're filled with more vitality. So to me, things like Tai Chi and Hatha yoga and stretching and yin yoga and all these things, they're designed basically to let go of these pockets of trapped emotion so that it can flood back into the central reservoir to actually sort of help you with making more quality decisions. I know that sounds complicated, but it's really, really quite simple when you get to it. You know, you mentioned photons. I've been shown quite clearly how photons interact, both photons and phonons as well. So the sound and light, how they interact with water, and how water, right? Yeah, and this is the thing, how water interacts with protons. So there's phonons, photons, and protons. Now, protons, as you know, are hydrogen ions. Now, hydrogen in water, water is hydrogen and hydroxyl. They're the yin and the yang of what it is to be water. Okay. Light frequencies can impact upon the balance of hydrogen and OH, right? And they can impact upon the way that the DNA expresses itself. The water is a cleansing agent. I'll keep going when this is coming through because somebody might understand this better than me.
This is like you're downloading, Joe. Keep going.
So it's the water is cleansing because it's cleansing away the husk, all the masks, all the shields, all the filters. It's like a hydrodynamic cleansing, cathartic episode that allows the DNA to express itself from the soul's perfect vibration. Now, the soul does have its own experiences. So there is this individual soul's purpose, but it's a particular resonant frequency that makes it unique. So the spirit, soul, mind, body, that's the sort of Russian dolls as it comes through. The more that we can get in touch with this soul's essential self and listen from the ego point of view as a servant, let's call it as a servant, because the ego becomes the servant then to the divine. And that's what surrender is. It's an alignment when the ego says, oh, all right, I've tried my best. I'll listen to you now. What actually happens then is we almost become chauffeur driven. The ego can almost like sit back and wait for the chauffeur to drive it to its next experience, I think.
Yeah, totally.
So
like how resist it so much though, because we've got this thing in our head about it's just this, you can see it, can't you, the parody. I mean, it's not to take away the seriousness of the situation on earth right now. It is pretty extreme in polarity sense, you know, in that sense, on that level of awareness. And there is that whole thing of the word surrender. You think of that like, are you surrendering to the government? Which story are you surrendering to? Is it some greater God? Is that God benevolent? Is it a judgmental God? Because I meet people and they've got all these different world views of things. So it has such a big not a levitation, that's not the right word, a big kind of leverage on the experience of the human. It's a very powerful word, that one, surrender. That was like the first Jesus, when I had this crazy experience with Jesus, like in 2016, and he said 2 words or 3 words. It was like let go and trust, and let go to me is the surrender and trust. And that's all I've had to learn, like over basically. It was that simple, wasn't it? Like you didn't need to go to no. Like library, you just had to learn these 2 basic things and it just took you and is taking it. It isn't over, it's continual, like work, deeper work on that. But it feels like that that is very fundamental, those essences, because I work on awareness, accountability and authenticity. It's like a core range that I'm working on my embodiment with that constantly, to try and become just more aware when I'm here, when I'm not, or like responsible for my projections, for my thoughts, my energy, my entrainments, all of that, calling it in. That's important. But what you just said about water, I'm gonna watch this back, because I swear you were just downloading into my head something really fundamental and really, really important for me, because a lot of the work, what I wanted to talk with Todd about the other week was these codes with water. I'm seeing like the structure of water as being a key fundamental factor in how source expresses in this body. like the structure and how dynamic it is and how coherent it is, and the geometries that come from those structures of water are key. And I wrote this code that was like a temple structure, and it came like, it felt like it was coming from different universes. It was just like all this information, and I just did it. I had to get it out. It's like an itch, isn't it? You've got to just download it. I couldn't hold it. It had to flow like water. And now the work is to come through all that information, and it feels very, very important for our understanding in science, in health, and in human and genetic expression. You know, and I'm not like a scientist, but you know, I've done study, so you know, I've got some fundamental understanding, but that just feels very big and a lot to do with how we code proteins and how they interact with the body and the structure of the basic fundamental functions of biochemistry in the brain and in the body, like the endocrine system. So I'm feeling that really deeply at the moment, but I just obviously don't talk about that because otherwise it's just too confusing.
Yeah, but no, I understand totally. See, I mean, it's when the egg and the sperm meet, I think what actually happens is that the egg goes out like that. It's like a map. It becomes like a constellation, and the constellation, right, is then acted upon by what they call these etheric formative forces, which are basically shapes. The shapes, you know, because how does a heart know to go and locate itself in the region where the heart should be? How do the kidneys know where to go? There must be some sort of external force that actually guides those. And it's a magneto-electric effect. I get all this all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like they're like I seem like algorithms of sound.
Well, exactly, and it is definitely that. It's sound, you know, it's like cymatics, isn't it, where they put sand on a thing and they play a tune and it goes into all those different structures. Well, that's how I see it. Sound is the fundamental vibration. That's what created the spark in the first place. There's these Faraday cages that they show this. They play sort of sound bubbles, and the bubble creates an electric spark, you see. So that all this, how the bleeding hell we put this together, because I haven't got time for all this, you know what I mean? But what I'm trying to say is they found now, medical science has found that in the midbrain, which is basically the subjective center of the individual, they use light now, right? And what that does is it impacts upon the water and changes the pH. And when the pH of certain regions changes, then the information that's being signaled then to the cells in the interstitium, that's the space between cells, impacts upon the cell membrane. And this is Bruce Lipton's work as well in epigenetics.
Yes, it's protein channels.
Yeah, well, no, so the protein channels, yeah, but the interstitium is where the cell membranes meet. So the water's actually passing between those. And then the protein channels are affected, whether to open or close then and allow the information to go through into the nucleus of the cell, well, actually into the cytoplasm. There's so much, you see, I know all this, but I don't really know what I'm talking about because it needs to come together. And I really need time where I can sort of write, or they need to show me simply because I don't bloody understand what I'm going on about half the time. People listen to me and think, Christ, he's clever him. I couldn't be further from the truth. I'm confused by it most of the time because I don't have enough space to be able to compute it. And that's the truth of it.
Yeah, I have the same, you know, Joe. I feel it like through, like I feel like for me, it's like a sort of Arcturian part of me. Because it was a bit that was really, I was so resistant to it, you know, to just surrendering, to have that amalgamation of consciousness. It's not like an external being. It's just source in a kind of form that can communicate, like the Diamond Light Collective. I don't see it all like beings anymore. It just is a construction that helps. It's helpful. Yeah. Sometimes to have a construct. So this is like, it downloads, and I sometimes think, can my brain have this information? Early on, I was doing this when I started coding. I was working with a lady called Yuki Rizora, and I was bringing through mathematical codes. Like, I'm writing them in light language, and I was told to go and write them on the beach. And I spent 7 months writing with a stick on the beach by the tide, because it was teaching me to not hold on to it, but to receive the data. And she said one day that the scientists are going to come for this information, because you've got it. And I'm just like, and now I know that is there, it's there, and that's what's coming in the codes. It's just that we haven't quite got the apparatus yet to defrag it. It's coming, we're doing it, it's perfect, everything's beautiful. There's no rush, there's nothing to strive for, there's no we can't go to school and learn it, we've just got to go in and trust it.
I've got thousands of papers downloaded. I have, you know what I mean? And when I get one, I'm reading, something opens in my heart to say, this is what it's about. And I say, well, okay, leave it with me. Now I wake up the next day and that's gone. And another one's taken its place. So it's almost like I've got a whole repository of papers. You know, it needs to be written in some sort of like meta-analysis. But the truth is, I haven't got time. And I say, look, if you want me to do this, right, you'll have to create some space and time for me. I'm willing to do it. It enthuses me very much indeed. I say, but you know, physically, it's sometimes too demanding for me, and I have to make a living because I'm not at that place yet where I can cast everything aside. And I'm being honest, I can't cast everything aside and say, go on then, provide me with the means to carry on, because I haven't got that amount of trust at the moment. I've got all the faith in the world, but you know, I believe I'm not afraid, but I'm cautious. You know, I'm not being stupid, really. You know, so that's where I'm up to, because I know that it is about light interacting with water, which is H2O. The H2O then, the charge will change the signal, the direction of the signal. That's what then construct the new neural pathways to help us to go forward. And so this is actually, it's like that film with John Travolta in Phenomenon, you know, where he got that sort of astrocytoma, you know, he got a sort of, and as it started to wake up, all these other dimensions of potential came online. Now, Susanne, what I see that the heart being the master vibration, that's the thing that's opening now. And it's really connected to the 12 cranial nerves.
Yes.
The 12 cranial nerves are connected to the 12 meridian systems. So there's now the etheric formative force in the invisible. And those are connected to like 12 constellations, the 12 tribes. And it goes out from there then. And so we've got multi-universal connections. But, you know, we've also got to make a few bob to keep going while we're down here as well.
Yeah, that's what we do, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'm not starving, nowhere near I'm starving. But the point about it is, if my head even goes further than the end of my nose, I think, well, how's this going to work for the future, for my wife, for the cat and all that? And that's when I get, hey, you, get back here into the present. We've got that covered, right? And then I start to say things like, well, give us another clue. Well, this weekend has basically been, here's a bleeding big clue for you, big boy, right? We're with you. Can't you feel us? Let me tell you something about when I came off the drink and the drug. Oh, that's what I want to talk about, the cleanliness of it all. Because even if you look at the thalidomide case, that was a chemical that obstructed the signals that were being sent to the developing embryo, wasn't it? We know that now. So yeah, it was
under something, wasn't it? I can't remember the review.
Yeah, well, they had short limbs and short arms and stuff like that, you know.
No, the way the molecular construct of thalidomide, they got it back to front.
Oh, did they? I don't know. Yeah. But the point about it is, even the tiniest, slightest change because of an impurity or a toxin, and this is quite relevant to what's going on at the moment, is we need to live as cleanly as possible and be guided to cleanliness. And by cleanliness, I don't mean becoming some sort of saint. I mean just cleaning up our own act, right, based upon our intuitive direction that's being given to us, you know. So we drink filtered water now, and we try to eat as few pesticide type things as possible. And it's certainly made a complete difference, really. You know, it's made such a difference. So to try and be as clean as possible in everything you do, and you know, whether that be thought, word, and deed, and all that sort of business, it may be that. I've got a long way to go on the word bit, cleaning up my act on that one, but I'm trying my best.
There hasn't been any F-bombs tonight.
No, there hasn't actually. No, it's been almost like, right,
Very
holy.
It's very deep, like, because there's so much more that you convey so much more than what you say in your word. So I wanted to kind of go back. I feel almost like I like want to turn it around and interview you a little bit, because there's so much there. When you say you download and you get all that stuff, I feel like I was getting visions, like you lecture, don't you? You go out and you talk, and you're talking to lots of people, and I feel like what happens is you seeding, like you're getting this information and it's all there, and you don't know what, when you're just doing all your normal stuff, what light is going, because you're not trying to put any kind of will on it, because you can't do that. It's not going to work like that. So you don't know what is seeded through that landing in that embodiment. And that's what I feel like when I'm working with people now, and I just go out, all I'm doing is sharing me. I'm just sharing what's there, and people remember stuff and they're picking it out, and they come back and they tell me like they dreamed of something in the code, or some word I've said, or I've turned up in the dream and started talking to them about like divine feminine or some crazy ass stuff. And see, I don't think it matters.
No.
I really don't. I don't think we have to do anything. I think what we've got is all these potentials, and because it feels like we're omnipresent. I feel more and more like there's this big bit, but then we're in the little bit, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. But the big bit is there too, and we just have to just let it go, all of it, and it will just happen the way it is. And if I had an experience of downloading all those algorithms, that's great. And if it ever comes to fruition, it's great. And if it doesn't, it's great. And all that really matters is how present can I be to be embodied in that witness of this phenomenon, whatever whatever the awareness is, like how awake can I be to it, and how present, and like normal stuff as well. Like we do have to live, we do have to shop, we've got kids, family, like we want a life like the way, we were all sitting on a hill in the middle of a beautiful thing yesterday, and I remember sitting there and going, holy cow, I didn't realize how I'd normalized all my online stuff, and how much I need human contact. Like this is so important to me. I used to not like people. I didn't want to be near other humans. Now it's something that is a necessary part for me to be healthy, is to have that. I realized it's given me something. When I saw everyone, like, all the people in my family that some haven't seen for like 2 years, I'm just like, oh my God, like, it's like looking upon people for the first time with new eyes, and we're not really separate. And I really felt that so deeply, how important the physical bit is.
No, I agree, and I've gone back in time, and I've met people from 20 years ago, and they're still in exactly the same loop. No change whatsoever. And I can pick up, when I go into different places environmentally, I pick up the time and all that goes with it. I can sometimes walk through places and pick up the 1910s when there was a sort of a mining community there and stuff like that. So I sense all that. But we'll have to have another one of these soon, and when we've got time, I'm sure it'll fall into place. But just to say, there was one coding that you did, and it was with 12 sort of spikes on, and what I see is the depth of it. It was a sphere. It's not a flat line thing. To me, it was a sphere, and in that center point was some people are calling it the 13th chakra, because Egyptian science has been very influential for me, especially Imhotep, who was basically the father of vibrational medicine, and that's guided me, or that enthusiasm, or that dimension of consciousness has locked onto me from a very, very early age, and I get influenced by that, because apparently he was very influential in Hippocrates' influence as well, you see. So it came a long time before the Greek influence. So Imhotep was the ancient Egyptian influence, but before him were the star people, and I've got no doubt about that. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and there's so many things, because I have more of a thing to do with Lemuria than Atlantis, really. And I think to me, the Lemurian energy is, to me, it's the mother energy, it's the nurturing energy. And I think what's happening is Lemuria and Atlantis, the yin and the yang, the masculine and feminine, they're coming back together again to almost take over where they left off last time. That's the way I sort of feel it, you know. Susanne, we're coming to time. Have you got anything that you'd like to do?
You've just said it. You've just said it. You did drop the bomb there. It was just like, that's the divine. It's like it doesn't matter which way we paint it. It's the divine union of oneness.
Yeah, and that's what I feel. It just feels great. And like you say, here's a word. One of my favorite words is that what alcohol did for me is it gave me the ability to act extemporaneously. Now that means out of time. And oh yeah, it's just one of those things. But when I went and looked it up, because I got this word, you know, I looked it up, and it means to live life without a script, without a script. So there's nothing written down. It's all spontaneous, and you feel comfortable to be able to handle yourself in any situation, because you know the strength of your guidance from your intuition and inspiration, you know. And I think that that's where we're going now. We don't have to plan. We just have to turn up, put our bottom on a seat, open our hearts, open our mouth, and everything else will fall into place from there then, really. Like this hour has just gone in a minute to me.
It's perfect. It's always perfect. It's a synergy. It's always perfect. I know the people on my family are going to love the things that you've said as well, because there's so much more that's coming as well.
And as I say to everybody is, don't believe a single word I say.
No, I say that too. Like a mantra is like, don't believe anything that comes out of my.
Yeah. But if it rings true and it feels okay, then explore a bit deeper, because I'm sure there'll be a little nugget for you to follow there, which will actually bring you back to who you are and who you always will be. In how many parts this feeling, but it's I can feel that coming in. The cross of changes.
It's really inspiring, like really, truly inspiring. Yeah, I'd love to do this again. I think it's important to anchor these things in, and it's really rich and nourishing. So
smashing. So we'll let the calendar makers in the sky sort that out, and like it, because it only happened yesterday, and we just set it up yesterday, and then it was just, that's the way it is, you know.
Yeah, it is. I've been avoiding it a bit because I was like, I'm going to go under the microscope of Dr. Joe. That's quite serious. And then it's like, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. It was just like, I've made it up in my head. I've just done it like to avoid like just showing up. It was all about not showing up. But anyway, thank you.
Thanks, my love, and lovely to see it, as I say. And the joy of living is our theme, and long may it continue. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.